Ryan Reynolds, my man, is here. One of my favorite bald men in the industry. Maybe one of my favorites. You, Bob Harris, Pat Thorman. There's a handful. Loving life, man.
I mean, bald and beautiful is a good thing. I'm a Pat Thorman advocate myself, and looking forward to this, man. Looking forward to letting it rip a little bit.
Absolutely, yeah. Establish the run. You're over there to establish the run, as is Pat. So we were talking previously about the props. You do a bunch of the prop work over there at Establish the Run, and you had some really sweet prop opportunities earlier in the year that I read about, but they have since been vaporized. So can you just talk about a couple of the props you liked a couple months ago that have been vaporized?
Well, most of the things that I correlate are with awards markets. So, for instance, I like Garrett Wilson in the Offensive Player of the Year market. That line's been nuked. It was 40-1. He's 28-1. Coincidentally, his yardage prop is dipped too. Same with Drake London. Everyone loves Drake London now. 3 months ago, he was 100-1 or so to win Offensive Player of the Year. Same with him. His yardage prop is dipped. So a lot of those situations where I was on a guy early, and now I don't want to bet bad lines ever. So the guys I like now, I can't bet on in those markets.
Dude, you're affecting the lines. You're a market mover, Ryan.
I have been. It's only a matter of time before one of these places sends an assassin after me. But well, we're still going strong. Still going strong.
Ooh, assassin talk.
Yeah, maybe.
You're a market mover. You are a market mover. So for fantasy football, who are you drafting the most in the first round of fantasy drafts?
That's a good question. Two answers. One, if I'm on underdog, Jamar Chase is the answer because you have to be wide receiver centric there because they fly off the shelves quick. In general, it might actually be a little bit Bijan Robinson just because I'm a little bit above market on him. And he'll slide to like pick 8 or 9 in some platforms, and yes. I'm picking him all the time in that spot.
Yeah, and all the news has been positive. The coaches are all about we're trying to find the most creative ways to get the ball to him. We need to get the ball to him. He is their best offensive player. He is one of the best offensive players in the league. He is in his super prime. This is the year that players like him, top 10 pick, every down skill set, explosiveness for days. These are the guys that pop in year 2.
Absolutely, man. Especially, he no longer has the plague of Arthur Smith holding him back. So looking forward to seeing what happens there. And, on top of that, good offensive line, Kirk Cousins to Desmond Ridder, like we're talking massive, massive chasm there in talent.
Yeah, more touchdown opportunities with Kirk Cousins under center. Now, which rookie are you drafting the most in all formats? Could be best ball, could be seasonal leagues, rookie drafts, but just in general, there's usually a rookie that you find yourself gravitating to everywhere.
Yeah, I think you're going to like this one. I like all of the top 3 rookie running back options, but Blake Corum's the cheapest. And,
yes.
I think it reminds me a bit of the Cam Akers situation where I'm not sure he's going to play early on because Stafford's a pocket passer and, pass protection's a big key with these guys. But Kyren Williams, obviously he was super productive last year, but I wouldn't quite call him like a great player. He's just right guy in the right spot, smart player. Blake Corum is, we're going to see it immediately. He's a more explosive player. And it's just a matter of time before he starts eating into his workload.
Only a matter of time. Can I tell you the timeline?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready.
I'm going to spoiler alert the timeline for everybody. Everybody write this down, everyone. Everyone write this down.
I got a pen, man. Let me get one.
Shh. Spoiler alert. Okay, week 1. Okay, week 1. Week 1. Because they're going to go through all of training camp and preseason, and they're going to realize, wait, this guy's bigger, faster, stronger, better in every way, better in pass protection, better everything. He's a full-grown man. He's 23 and a half years old. This isn't like a 21-year-old who's still got a little bit of growing to do, still got to develop. Even Bijan last year. The one thing about Bijan Robinson coming into the league last year, he was very young. Very young. And so that made a little more sense that they were going to be easing him in, not giving him quite as many between the tackles carries as he's going to get this year. and, let Tyler Algier eat 200 touches and let Bijan get acclimated to the NFL. Blake Corum doesn't need this. Blake Corum could have came out the year before, had like 1,600 plus rushing yards, would have been a day 2 pick. And he said, no, I've got work to do. I need to win a championship. That right there is like, I like that. Number one, I like that attitude. And then number two, the year you're drafted, how old you are, it's a lot less predictive of future success at the running back position than it is the wide receiver position. With the running back position, I just assume the guy have the seasoning when he comes into the league. So on a lot of levels, the Blake Corum ADP has the thing that has made the least sense. And there are a handful of people in my Scott Fishbowl draft, like David Berger. Okay. Hey, David, I'm sure you're listening because you're clearly taking Corum like 2 rounds ahead of ADP. Thanks a lot. Right. I had it all lined up, man. I was going to take Corum in a couple picks and then boom, like, and then I'm like, that name rings a bell. I'm in there with Matthew Friedman, Trevor Tipton, Reed Rocker, a bunch of people I know, a bunch of people that listen to this show. And of course I can't have nice things when I do that. Of course. So no Blake Corum in the Scott Fishbowl. And I claimed on this show that I would have Blake Corum in every league. And now I can't say that. And now I can't say, but I fully intended to take him. It was like going to be 20 picks ahead of ADP. That was my plan. I was going to go 20 picks ahead of ADP, but instead he went 30 picks ahead of ADP. Okay, fine. You can have him, David.
Well, if you're in a draft for the Podfather, if you want Blake Corum, 20 picks too early is not going to be enough. You need to hit it around 25, 30 to get him.
What, right? Yeah. Fair. So now we're continuing to give people with this show, sacrificing the element of surprise in fantasy drafts to help all of you be better, right? And Ryan Reynolds is a very smart guy. He is one of the smartest guys out there, and I think you're on my list, maybe top of the list in terms of a great analyst that not enough people know about. And that's why you're on the show. That's why you help player profile with projects, and you can hear some of this music that's coming in because we're gonna bring you in a big way. We've got a lot of questions. I got a lot of questions. We get some Jordan Addison news. We got things to talk about. Welcome to the Mind of Mansion program. One of the top bald men in all of fantasy, and the top of my list of the fantasy analysts that don't get enough attention that you need to know about straight off the Josh Mark talent tree. Here with me today it is Ryan Reynolds. Talk to me.
That was maybe the best intro I've ever gotten in my life, man. Once upon a time, I came out as a pitcher to Communication Breakdown, and I was happy with that. This might have topped the list, man. That was good. I love it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Ryan, I want to get a little more. The one improvement I could make is I could start off with a little more emphasis on. I try to build up to it because it's a confidence thing. How far can I go with it? So starting at a lower point is easier to ramp up, but I could start at a bit higher point. I'm going to, so there's always room. Next time you're on, we'll go to that next level. Jordan Addison now has 2 intersections with law enforcement in less than a year. Are you worried?
Well, after that big intro too, you're the Podfather. I feel like I can shoot at you completely straight. Let me tell you this. I don't really like wide receivers. When I was a young man, wide receivers in my life, they're the kind of guy who hits on some other guy's girl, hits on some other guy's wife, then walks him over to me to fight him for him. Not really a big fan of wide receivers. So in that case, am I concerned about Jordan Addison? I'm about as concerned about Jordan Addison as he is with me. Now, in terms of fantasy football and his viability in that aspect, Obviously, we're trending in a bad direction here.
Well, that is what I'm talking about. We're talking about fantasy
yeah.
football. This is a fantasy football show.
I know, man. I know. He's trending in a bad direction here. At best, he's an accessory in an offense with a volatile quarterback situation this year. So I'm going to be out on him probably. I was out on him before, any kind of legal ramifications that cost. I would rather go in different directions. So yes, this makes it a little bit easier to pass on him for me.
I am crossing him off my list. I refuse to draft him in Dynasty. You can draft him in seasonal leagues. He's going to have to work his way through the court system and see if anything happens, and he'll report to camp, and this will be an afterthought. But this kid is a time bomb. You're falling asleep, pulling a car over, the police are knocking on the window. You're caught in another instance going 160 miles per hour in a Lamborghini. You clearly are not respecting yourself. You're not respecting your future earnings and your ability to participate in this profession that really is a privilege for those that there's so many that want to be there. That's the thing. Whenever I see a Rashee Rice, whenever I see a Jordan Addison, I think about all the wide receivers that coulda, woulda, shoulda, that really wanted to make it and went undrafted, or were drafted in the 7th round and washed out and did everything they could. You see some of these guys on Hard Knocks too, right? You see them crying. You see how emotional they get. You see how emotional the coaches get, even talking to them, how much they want it. Like last year, a kid like Xavier Gipson on the Jets. You see a guy like that. These are the guys like Jordan Addison that, of course, they resent them. They should resent them. But it's also a warning that we need to heed, especially as dynasty leaguers. You have these guys for their career. This is a signal that there is some underlying problem there. Whatever it is, some sort of emotional dilemma in this person's life. This is the way they're trying to treat it, and they're not getting the help they need. Maybe they will. It's possible he does, and this is the last instance. But the second intersection with law enforcement is where I get worried and where I start just crossing that guy off, because there's so many guys out there that'll never have an intersection with law enforcement. Christian Kirk, right? He was throwing the rocks at the cop cars at the Waste Management Invitational, and then we didn't hear from Christian Kirk again. This was a stupid mistake of a young person that's just been given millions of dollars. That's also very possible. Guy goes out and buys a Lamborghini, sees how fast he can take it. Oh, he gets pulled over. It's all possible. Okay, right? I wasn't worried about Jordan Addison. But you can go from 0 to 60 worry level instantly as soon as that second arrest comes in, that second incident comes in. You're like, okay, well, this is now a totally different paradigm.
Yeah, 1 bad night's forgivable. 2 is a pattern, especially when it's this close together. And, you can chalk 1 up to, just being dumb and whatever. 2 is like, this guy isn't really thinking like a businessman. I couldn't agree with you more.
There's plenty of options. We've never had such a bevy of options at the receiver position. This year we had an influx of Odunze and Marvin Harrison and Malik Neighbors. We have so many great options. And then some sophomore receivers are going to break out, like, maybe Michael Wilson. But there's going to be a lot of options when we look back and like, I could have drafted all these players over Jordan Addison, who's never going to be the number 1 option on his team. Ever. It's not going to happen. Even if he goes somewhere else at some point, he is like he's a possession flanker. Like, he's a high volume flanker. That's not a true number 1 wide receiver profile in most cases. So you're better off looking elsewhere. You go to our Dynasty rankings on playerprofiler.com. You're going to notice Jordan Addison has dropped precipitously just in the last couple weeks because of this incident specifically. Rashee Rice, on the other hand, continues to grow his value in fantasy. As every day goes by and there are no new incidents, then the stability around Rashee Rice continues to grow. The confidence that I have in drafting him continues to grow. If I can't get Blake Corum in this next round of the Scott Fish Bowl, I'm going to be targeting Rashee Rice. To all of you that are listening, maybe you're listening live, and I'm fucking myself, as always, being super transparent about what I want to do because my priority is your fantasy teams, not mine. Rashee Rice, right? He's good to go for the rest of the year because we're now at a point where he has not even started the process of pleading or going to court or having a trial or anything like that. It's going to take time. We just saw Cameron Sutton's case come through where he was suspended 8 games for a misdemeanor. But the key is the NFL waited months until after the case was resolved to issue a suspension. So that's what matters to me. Yes, it's not great for Rice that a guy with a misdemeanor for domestic assault just got 8 games. That's not good. But for seasonal leagues, for those of us in best ball, seasonal leagues, looking to draft Rashee Rice right now for fantasy football, it's fantasy season, baby. It's late July. I don't see a world where this case is resolved and the NFL issues a judgment this year. What do you think about Rashee Rice?
Yeah, generally speaking, to go back to your Addison point, the 2 incidents, 2 months ago had me off Rice. One of them got dismissed. And like you said, usually in these matters, legal matters take a long time. The league doesn't proactively suspend players before a ruling comes in. It's not going to happen until next year. We've seen it with Tyreek Hill in the past. We've seen it with Alvin Kamara in the past. I usually buy the dip on these guys. So now I've been buying Rice at cost, for about a month now since his dismissal for his first matter. And on top of that, I like Hollywood Brown. Worthy's interesting. I think it probably takes more than a year for Worthy to get acclimated, but Rice has rapport with the best quarterback in the league. And if, Travis Kelce's getting older, Rice is more of an intermediate to short skill set working in the seam than either Hollywood Brown or Worthy do, where they're both burners. So Rice has big upside. Someone's definitely going to steal him from you in Scott Fishbowl now. You did it to yourself, like you said. You're a man of the people. They should appreciate that. But, in general, we're taking Rashee Rice at cost now.
Oh, yeah. Now, not necessarily in Dynasty. I'm not saying you take a guy with 2 intersections with law enforcement in Dynasty. No, I'm not a big Rashee Rice in Dynasty advocate. Absolutely not. Certainly not Jordan Addison either. But in seasonal leagues where it's this year, we're confident that Rashee Rice is going to play at this point. And I don't think he's going to get suspended until at next May. Is that reasonable?
Yeah, I think that sounds like reality to me, Podfather. It does.
Yeah, they're going to play through. They're going to take a run in the playoffs. They're not going to suspend him in the regular season, mid-season. They're not going to suspend him into the playoffs. They're going to wait. The season's going to play out. The verdict, the ruling will come down. The plea will come out. Whatever it is, it'll get announced. It'll be March. They'll wait a couple months like they like to do. And then it's going to be May, and then we'll hear about some suspension of 4 games or 8 games or whatever it is for Rashee Rice. Bottom line is, it's not going to be this year, so draft away, bombs away with Rashee Rice this year. This could very well be his career year.
I like that. Like, we don't need Rashee Rice to raise our children. We just need him for fantasy football for 1 season. And you're right.
1 year.
If this was the best year of his career, it wouldn't even mildly surprise me. I think that's an excellent point.
Yeah. And so there's a bunch of second-year receivers I'm excited about that are not Jordan Addison. Another one is Jaxon Smith-Njigba. What are the chances that Jaxon Smith-Njigba outscores DK Metcalf?
Oh, that's interesting. In full PPR, I definitely think there's a path. I'm going to say 35% will be the number, but here's how I view the whole thing. DK Metcalf's a pretty unique athlete in the league. They're going to give him purposeful opportunities, new offense, so he's going to be part of it. But there's no intersection with what Metcalf does and what JSN does. JSN's like a short area quickness player. I mean, I think it's above 50% that he leads the team in receptions potentially, or at least right around 50%. So I definitely think there's a path in full PPR, and half PPR, I think it's a little thinner.
I'm not drafting DK Metcalf. I don't get it. I mean, a younger Podfather maybe, so just chasing the size and speed and the athleticism. I could see myself doing that. I could see myself just locked in on DK Metcalf for his career. But I'm out. If your career year was 2020 and you've been leaking efficiency ever since, I mean, did he get a big quarterback upgrade I'm not aware of?
He does. It's a good point. Unlike Rashee Rice, this is probably just who DK Metcalf is. So even if he pops off a little bit, the increase is probably going to be marginal. For me, I want to be right around market on him, a little bit behind, little bit on point, but
behind.
So
I think behind market. You can be behind market on him. He's not going to hurt you.
Yeah.
Of all the top 50 receivers, the guy that has the least chance of burning you, let's say you were to put him on your do not draft list, I'm not going to put Nico Collins on my absolute do not draft list in tournaments. Yeah. I have to have some Nico. I got to have 3% Nico in my portfolio because if he is the alpha that was promised in Houston, I don't think it's true, but I don't know what's going to happen. Right? So I could say, hey, well, there's a chance Nico goes nuclear. There's a chance he's a top 10 receiver in fantasy, and I am getting absolutely run over by him, that he's the highest performing player in his ADP range. Well, I can't be totally out on that guy. That's suicidal. You can't do that. He could hurt you. He could really hurt you. How badly could player X that I don't like hurt me? That's the difference between putting him on a do not draft list and just being way underweight. DK Metcalf, I would argue, can't really hurt you. He's not in a position to rip your face off the way Nico Collins is.
It's a good way to look at it. I agree with Nico Collins, by the way. I think he's being drafted too high, but you can't completely ignore him because of the situation he's in. If he is the alpha there, it's a great way to look at it. He can hurt you. And you're right, at this point, like you said, Geno Smith is Geno Smith. He's not.
What is DK going to do to you?
Yeah. It's a great point. It really is.
I mean, if you have to pick guys in the top 50 to not draft, he would be right there. I mean, he's not Kyron Williams level, do not draft. No one is. But, I mean, please. So, Devon Achane, he could hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
He could hurt you. You have to have some Achane. You got to have at least 3% Achane in Best Ball Mania on Underdog. Absolutely. You got to have it. You can't not.
Yeah.
But now they're coming out. Oh, the leader of that running back room is Raheem Mostert. That's what we're hearing from the beat reporters in Miami, because that was Mostert last year, and Mostert's still there, and Mostert does not have a incredible number of carries on his odometer that would prevent him from producing again this year. So makes sense. It makes sense that he would be the veteran deference would go to Mostert, and then there's Achane for the explosive plays. But then the problem is they also drafted Jalen Wright. Why'd they do that? Well, they did that because maybe he's a bigger version of Achane, and they like that type of player, that skill set. It just aligns with what they are trying to do. It makes sense stylistically that some coaches just have a type, and it's perfect for the system. But at that ADP, it's just not a value. I don't understand it, especially on Underdog, where the hipster Underdog drafters always posture like they hate running backs. And then I look at the Achane ADP and I'm like, what are you guys doing?
Yeah, he's a more extreme version of Nico Collins because again, I hate his ADP. If I'm drafting one season long team, I'm not taking him where he's going because his downside is he's 5'9", 188 pounds. He's the chances of this dude missing a significant portion of the season is large, and plus they're gonna have to manage his workload. And Mike McDaniels did that in San Francisco too. It's a ride the hot hand backfield. Mostert's the stability guy. On the other hand, Achane's super explosive. I think Chris Johnson is an aggressive comp. I see him more as Napoleon Kaufman to really turn the clock back. Burner, this dude can rip off 75-yard runs at a greater clip than just about anyone. He can be the guy you need in the right week. That said, I will say this for the people. I've watched every snap of every game since 2014. That 200-yard performance against the Broncos where he had a quarter of his rushing yards in the year last year, I would throw that one out when evaluating Achane. That was a super outlier game. Very weird. Denver basically surrendered in the first quarter. It was very strange.
Not taking anything away from actually. That was I saw that game. My daughter and I were watching, and we saw it, and I was like, "This is a weird one."
Yeah, it looked like a Madden game on rookie against like a 6-year-old. It was weird. I'd throw that one out. But again, if you're in tournaments, I'm not like you said, 3 to 5% on Achane for me in tournaments, just because he does have that skill set where that dude can carry a week for you and at any time.
Yeah, but you could probably have more Mostert.
Yeah, I mean, Mostert's probably safer, quote unquote. And like you said, one of the benefits of him having a pretty significant injury history is that for his age, he doesn't have a ton of work on his belt. But he was good last year. He's going to get the ball unless he gets hurt.
I mean, last year was the first year that Mostert had more than 20 rush attempts, more than 200 rush attempts. Right? That's it. That's the first time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all. Yeah.
I don't know what the exact total is. We could add them up. We could add it up right now. I'm on playerprofiler.com. I click the little expand arrow to see all of his season stats back through time. And we can say 209 rush attempts, 181. So that's, roughly 400, 500. He has less than 600 carries. 700 carries. Less than 700 carries ever. That's it.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good to know. Definitely is.
I mean, that's just not a lot of carries.
No.
So maybe he's a value. Maybe do you consider that to be the dead zone for running backs? Would you consider that? Would you consider the 9th round on Underdog? Would you consider that the dead zone?
I think my range. I think
is that post dead zone.
See, I kind of view it that way myself. I think Rashee White's the cliff. I think it starts with Kenneth Walker and it ends with Brian Robinson, but Mostert's a guy you don't want to completely ignore. I don't really care about Pollard too much. Pollard was a non-factor last year. I want some Aaron Jones at least, especially because I was enthusiastic about Ty Chandler before he played last year. I actually think he disappointed in a very good situation. So
yeah,
Aaron Jones is a good player. Aaron Jones was really good at the end of the year. I could see squeezing one more year out of him, but out of that group, if I have a 0 running back team, maybe I'm taking Ramondre Stevenson just for some stability, even though I don't really want to get involved with that. But that's where I view this year's dead zone personally.
I've warmed up all the way to Aaron Jones. I just want to let everybody know that. Full disclosure, I like Aaron Jones now. Aaron Jones is another player that hasn't had a bell cow workload in his career, but he is 210 pounds now. He has the body to have an Austin Eckler from 2 years ago workload.
Yeah.
He has one of those in him. He has one of those seasons in him. And I think this is the season. He's on a 1-year deal. He's 29 years old. This is his moment. He's making $7 million. It's for this year. His entire career, his football career, will be distilled into this year. And he has one of the best receiving profiles in the NFL among running backs. And he's explosive between the tackles. And he's on a team that's going to be playing up-tempo. Right? You have to compete against the Detroit 2 games on the schedule. You get Chicago 2 games on the schedule. You get Green Bay, vastly improved, 2 games on the schedule. The situation for Aaron Jones is as good as it gets.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we need 1 year. I'm going to add one J.J. McCarthy plays. They're going to probably try to protect him a little bit more, where it's primary read, check down, or running back. That's probably one of the reasons they brought Aaron Jones in. And 2, to walk down narrative street a little bit here, in money-making week 17, Jones plays Green Bay, and he's going to be super, super, super motivated in that contest. So I've warmed up to him too. I like him at cost. You know, if he fails, it doesn't kill your team. But if he hits, you know, you're getting him at a very good value.
Yeah, this is not like when Josh Jacobs turns 29, I'm going to be out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
I'm not in on Josh Jacobs post Apex. Like, this is the last year where I'm going to be drafting Josh Jacobs. His first year on a new team with a new contract. That's the year I'm going to be drafting Josh Jacobs. And the last year I'm going to be drafting Josh Jacobs. What about you? You drafting Josh Jacobs this year?
Yeah, it's the same thing. You know, if you walk through the top performers in fantasy at the running back position, if you go through the top 10, they're all first or second round picks, you know? When you go after the second round, you know, there's guys like Alvin Kamara was outside of that range. He's one of the outliers. So Lloyd's a super interesting, talented athlete. I've worked with NFL GMs where I've heard them say things like, we're not necessarily drafting rookies for this year. We're thinking about next year. So I think next year he's going to be interesting. I love Josh Jacobs. I can't wait to play him in DFS in week 1, especially since there's a significant portion of the community that's not interested in him. I'm with you. This is the year to bet on him. I'm betting on him. His ADP to me is insane. I can't believe he's going where he is.
I know.
Like, this dude won the rushing title 2 years ago, and he's on the best offense he's ever played in his career this year. And on top of that, it's a distributor offense. They throw checkdowns on first down on purpose. Again, primary read, swing pass. That's what the Green Bay Packers do. I could see him having the most targets in his career this year.
Yeah, this is the year to get Jacobs. This is a great year to get him. There's a lot of older running backs. I know he's not that old. He's like 25.
He's 26, I think. Yeah.
He just turned 26.
Yeah. I think
okay.
So, yeah.
So he's still in his prime. I mean, given his workload, his historical workload, and he came out of Alabama very young. I think he was 20 when he came out. I mean, he was very young when he came out.
Might have been.
And has a huge, workload history. That said, this is the year. Age 26. This is that he may even see some efficiency decline later in the year. I wouldn't be surprised about that. But you'll be so happy about what he's produced this year, with or without the efficiency. It's not going to matter. You're going to be like, wow, I really, right? Yeah. Mostert, Aaron Jones. I just can't believe how many older post-peak running backs I'm interested in this year. And then there's the Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins dichotomy in Los Angeles. And I keep hearing that Gus Edwards is the clear number 1 there. That's what the beat reporters are saying. Yes, definitely the Gus Edwards show. And then, J.K. Dobbins might mix in. And I'm like, wait, is this real? Yeah, how? What? They're like, J.K. Dobbins is healthy, and he's going to try to mix in. With Gus Edwards? I'm confused.
Yeah. Great situation. Not only do you have Harbaugh and Justin Herbert, but that's an excellent offensive line with 2 of the, 6 or 7 best offensive tackles, assuming that the rookie plays up to his potential. But I think to appropriately answer this question, we have to define what healthy means for J.K. Dobbins. If we're talking about 3 years ago healthy, where he's at the peak of his powers, he's a radically more dynamic player than Gus Edwards.
Yeah.
Even if he's 20% reduced, he's not quite what he used to be. He's still a more dynamic player than Gus Edwards. So Gus Edwards looks like he could be this year's Damian Harris, where or like even last year's Gus Edwards, where, he's going to get 10, 14 carries a game, catch like 1 pass every 3 weeks and score 10 touchdowns. But Dobbins' upside is fascinating. So if you're asking me who I'm going to take between the 2 of them, especially in a tournament, I'll dice on the more dynamic option with the bigger upside.
J.K. Dobbins, bro. But J.K. Dobbins he's also post-Apex at this point, right? Yeah. And it's an interesting point about these young running backs. I love Jalen Wright. Theo loves Marshawn Lloyd, Tyrone Tracy. I love Kamani Vidal, Will Shipley, Dylan Lobby, our fearless producer, Tyler Knable. He loves him some Ray Davis. The thing is, these guys, day 3 picks, most of them, all of them that I listed, day 3 picks, they're probably not going to be relevant this year. They're probably a year away, just like the general manager was talking about. They're probably a year away. We drafted this guy as the future. And a lot of these guys that were in that position in previous years, Zamir White, Roschon Johnson, what are we talking about? 4th round picks, right? Kendre Miller, later picks that are outside, say, the top 75 players. They typically take a year.
Yeah.
That's why I'm so laser focused on Benson, Brooks, and Corum. Benson, Brooks, and Corum. Benson and Brooks are young. Brooks is the only one with the significant draft capital. He's picked at the 14th pick in the 2nd round. Blake Corum has the experience and is the most NFL ready. I don't think that's up for dispute, right? The Blake Corum's most NFL ready running back. That's not a hot take.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's my focus. And in previous years, I would have been a little more like, hey, what about this Tyrone Tracy guy? I was super excited about Kamani Vidal when the draft happened. I was like, this guy could be relevant this year. But as mini camp plays out and you start to read or not read, right? I'm not reading anything. I haven't read a thing about Kamani Vidal. I've been looking for it. I've been practicing this bias, confirmation bias. Please, someone help me learn about how much people love Kamani Vidal inside the building, and they're not giving me what I want. And that makes me worried. And then that makes me go, okay, well, he is from a small school. He is a 6th round pick. It is probably not going to happen. You maybe just need to get excited about J.K. Dobbins and stop trying to get so creative. But then you need to also think about, well, who were those guys last year? Those guys last year were Kendre Miller. Those guys last year were Roschon Johnson. Those guys are now in their 2nd year. Those are the guys you should be focused on Underdog. Those are the guys you should be wanting to draft. Those are the guys where I'm going to be doing a 0 RB build in the Scott Fishbowl, and I'm going to be backing the truck up on those types of running backs that have had their seasoning, they're acclimated, and it was 2024 that they were drafted for all along.
Yeah, I mean, I love that group this year. So many of them. Like, I thought Zach Charbonnet was overdrafted, for instance, but that's a situation where you have a new coaching staff where he has at least some chance to overtake Kenneth Walker to a degree. He has a better pass catching profile than Walker.
Yes.
And if Walker goes down, Charbonnet's going to take you to the promised land. So I love him. There's a bunch of guys in that group. I had no interest in Tank Bisbee and Chase Brown last year. 0. I think Tank Bisbee's an Alexander Madison level player where that means he's fine. And Chase Brown, pass protection issues. I won't call Joe Burrow statuesque, but he's more of a pocket passer than a dynamic athlete. I didn't think he was going to play, but they just brought in Zach Moss. While Moss had a nice year, that's, they obviously like someone else on the roster. So I think Chase Brown's interesting. And, I think if Bigsby does anything, it's going to take an injury, but you're getting him for free in the 18th round. So I have much more of him this year than I had last year. Than Zamir White. There's a bunch of guys in that range where I'm interested in virtually all of them, actually.
I mean, Zamir White.
Yeah.
Zamir White's got this job. Zamir White's going to catch more passes than anyone is prepared for. He's going to catch dump-offs. He is going to just run out. When they run routes, these running backs, they do end up catching dump-offs. Even those with the worst hands, they will absorb 20, 30 catches. This idea that Zamir White's going to catch 10 passes, that's not right. He's going to be out there a lot. The snap share for Zamir White's going to be like 60%.
Yeah.
So that means he's going to, not only is he going to be getting all the carries, all the goal line work, but he's going to catch a bunch of passes too. I want him.
Yeah, I mean, the offense is scaring a lot of people away, and I get that to a degree, but Gardner Minshew made the Colts a competitive team last year. Alexander Madison's, he was brought in to spell White. He wasn't brought in like, okay, we're going to, they like Zamir White. That's why they brought in a guy like Madison. If they trade Devontae Adams, they're probably going to even run more, So I'm with you. Like if you're building a zero running back team and you just need someone with stability, to me, it's Ramondre and him. They're both going to get the lion's share of the work, and they're going to have, they're going to have 3 receptions most weeks.
Oh, wait, what's the big difference between Zamir White and Kenneth Walker? Like if Zamir White went to Michigan State and he was their best offensive player, he could have had a Kenneth Walker-like season, but he was at Georgia and he was surrounded by all these other weapons. James Cook, and who was a very fantasy relevant last year, and the Georgia national champions, right? They played him the optimal amount. They played him the exact right amount to win a championship.
Yeah.
Right? So when I think about guys that have like a 30-catch ceiling, Kenneth Walker, 30-catch ceiling,
Yep.
Zamir White, 30-catch ceiling. What do you love about him? 4 wheels, can break off these long runs. Well, what? Same guy, man. Same guy. What a quarterback situation. Yeah. Both are concerning. And it's not even clear that Aiden O'Connell isn't better than all of them. Isn't better than Minshew, isn't better than Geno Smith. Aiden O'Connell could be better than all these guys.
Yeah, I'd probably veto that personally. I was not very happy with him, but I don't think the margin's very large. And like you said, like there's at least a chance that he shows more this year than last year, because like I think in this instant gratification world we live in now, like these dudes are playing professional football when they're children still, basically, like they might have a rocky first year and be a totally different guy with a year's seasoning. So it's at least possible. I don't personally see it with him.
But you see that at where he's going, this is why it's very difficult. How can I justify drafting a Kenneth Walker? That's where I'm going with this. It's not really you got to get. I'm not saying you got to get Zamir White everywhere, but when you're making decisions and you're like, okay, is there anyone like Rachaad White later in the draft? The answer is no.
Yeah.
No, not even close.
Yeah.
So yes, you can absolutely draft Rachaad White in this. There's this one running back in this area of the draft where I say go ahead, and that's Rachaad White, right? From Achane through Ramondre, it's a very difficult case to make for those running backs. That is like the dead zone. My dead zone is earlier. My dead zone starts pretty much after Bijan. it is a dead zone, and the only exception, like the buoy in the dead zone of like a lake of acid, the one guy that's not affected is Rachaad White, and that's it. And it's through Kenneth Walker. I'm like, listen, man, I can get Zamir White later. I'm like, listen, I can get a guy like that later. Listen, I can get a guy like that later. Rachaad White, well, no. It'll be interesting to see when the fantasy public finally comes to Jesus on Rachaad White. There may be a game this year, Ryan. There may be a game this year. I want to be here. I'm going to be here. I will be here. I will be on this channel, on the Player Profiler YouTube channel. I will be on this podcast, the Player Profiler Network podcast, the Mind of Mansion. I'm going to be here. And you all are going to know when I know. We're going to know together when the fantasy industry and all these fantasy gamers finally come to Jesus on Rachaad White. I can't wait. It's going to happen this year.
I'll say this about Rachaad White. First, I was talking about Aiden O'Connell not believing in him. I actually think your Zamir White take is very logical. But with White, going into last year, loved the potential workload, wasn't crazy about the talent. About the midpoint of last season, when Tampa's offense started to trend up, multiple weeks in a row, I was like, this guy's better than I thought he was. He's more explosive than I thought he was. It's not just a volume thing. Where like I don't think he's as good as Breece Hall, but I do think from a pure production standpoint, I could see it being closer than most people expect. And like you're getting White in what, the 6th round?
Yeah, 6th round. Yeah, and he had the one game with 28 fantasy points.
Yeah.
But that was the only game where he was over 21 fantasy points. Like he had 21 fantasy points in week 2. He had 21 fantasy points in week 14, in week 15, right? He was so consistent. He had like 4 weeks in a row where he put up 17.5 fantasy points.
Yeah.
Like it was like a metronome, this guy, right? Every week. But he wasn't. That's the thing, man. If he was out one of those weeks and then instead of 17 and 17, he had 34 in a week, then the whole perception changes. This guy won me a week, right? Even the week he had 28 fantasy points, he may not have been in the number one DFS lineup that week. I have no idea if he was even on the main slate. I don't know if anyone won $1 million with him. Maybe he's never won anyone $1 million. And then that's the problem. It's just there's a moment where everyone finally goes, oh, I guess, yeah. Oh, I guess, yeah. And he just hasn't had that moment yet, and we're all benefiting from it.
I love that because you're right. Like DFS players that win weeks, 35 points, 2-3 touchdowns. Those are the guys that get the headlines, or the guys that people remember. The guy who's steady and slow and just gives you that rock solid, where he's like essentially a middle class man CMC from a production standpoint.
That's right.
It's interesting. It is. I'm much more bullish on him this year than I was last year. That I can say with absolute certainty.
For good reason. What about on that same team? What about Godwin?
I'll say this, he's a guy like everyone, if you're a good manager, you put people in the roles that they excel in. He's a guy who runs good crossers, good in breaking routes. He belongs in the slot. He's going to see more of that. My guy Jordan Vanek put that on my radar a couple of months ago, so I've been above market on him for a while because of that. And now that news is starting to break to confirm that, so he's creeping up, and he should be. Where I'm lower than consensus on Mike Evans, going to be higher than consensus on Godwin. I expect that to be the case heading into opening day.
My man, that's it. Yeah, dude, Mike Evans gotten steamed up.
Yeah.
Mike Evans is steamed. And I'm like, I don't think he can hurt me as much as some of these other wide receivers. He can't hurt me as much as, say, Nico Collins. Things break right for Nico Collins. Nico Collins blows Mike Evans out of the water. Is Mike Evans ceiling higher than DK Metcalf? Yes. Yes, you got to have a little bit of Mike Evans. You got to have a little bit, but not a lot. Not a lot. Underweight on Mike Evans, overweight on Chris Godwin, and you're even weight on the Tampa Bay offense, especially if you're overweight on Rachaad White. Evan Engram. Evan Engram, to me, needs to be drafted. If he's there, draft him. That's what I'm saying. I don't get it. They don't have Calvin Ridley. And Brian Thomas is not going to be the target commander that Calvin Ridley was last year. So there's opportunity for the explosive Evan Engram. Just because he wasn't showing off his explosiveness in New York, it's been years since he was in New York. He's now a Jacksonville Jaguar. And ever since he's been with Jacksonville, he's been good, right? He's been a top 7 tight end the last 2 seasons, and he's been getting better and better. So it's weird that he set a career high in receiving yards. In fact, he crushed his previous career high by 200 yards. And yet, he has not exceeded his career high in air yards. As a rookie, he put up 1,000 air yards and 6 touchdowns, but fewer receiving yards because he had, one of the lowest catch rates and a lot of unrealized air yards from a lot of inaccurate passes in New York. Everything is clicking into place. He is 29 years old. He's going to be 30. There are so many tight ends that have career years at this exact moment where things are clicking into place perfectly. He is in his 3rd year. He is the number one, you could argue. Like, if I'm Trevor Lawrence and I'm going back, I'm going to look for Christian Kirk as an outlet underneath. Sure, he's going to be there. But I got to think that of all the tight ends, there are very few tight ends around the league that are going to be more frequently the first read.
Definitely on the short list of that. I mean, let me frame my enthusiasm for Engram this way, because I'm also I'm doing my top 50 update right now, and it's one of the questions I have is how high is too high for Engram? But I'm more of a film guy, but every offseason I spend a couple days just running through all the numbers, baseline stats, advanced metrics, and every year there's a few surprises.
The site playerprofiler.com, I'm sure you check it out, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Evan Engram was 12th in the league in targets last year. Mind-blowing. Like you said, Calvin Ridley's gone. And here's the question that I'll ask is, if you're taking Trey McBride in the 4th round, why wouldn't you take Evan Engram in the 7th? Especially because I don't know how you feel about this.
This is Walker Zamir White all over again.
Yeah,
this is the arbitrage that I'm talking about. Okay, you're going to draft Trey McBride after they just added Marvin Harrison. Okay, cool. What about a guy like him where they're subtracting target options, not adding to it?
Right. Like you said, Thomas, I could see Thomas surging at the end of the year, but he's not going to duplicate Calvin Ridley's production over a full season. And ultimately, again, I don't know how you feel about Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence has been good. He just hasn't quite lived up to his draft hype. He was, one of the best quarterback prospects ever, and he hasn't been that guy yet, but he's still good. And I think he's going to be better this year than he was last year. There was a number of throws he made, 30, 40-yard throws where he missed by, inches. And, law of averages doesn't necessarily mean that's going to, break in his favor this way, but I think he's going to have a better year this year than he did last year. And Engram's established himself as one of his favorite targets.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think all else equal, he would rather throw a ball to Engram than Christian Kirk. I don't know. I haven't asked him. If I had to ask, if we could get Trevor Lawrence on the show, what I'm saying is, all else equal, I think you'd rather put it up to Engram. 136 targets and 1,792 air yards gone just with Calvin Ridley going to Tennessee.
Yeah. Dude has a wonderful floor with a legitimate path to more volume. He's one of the most undervalued guys in fantasy so far.
I mean, thank you. Yes, it's incredible. I mean, of course I couldn't get him in the Scott Fish Bowl because I can't have nice things. But Trey McBride is a perfectly fine young man.
Mm-hmm.
He did great. I mean, he showed that he is on an elite trajectory last year.
Yeah.
And, we know Kenneth Walker, one of the best runners in the league. If you were on the 50-yard line, you said, we got to score a touchdown on a run play, Kenneth Walker would be one of the first guys you give the ball to. Right? But there are guys that are very similar going multiple rounds later, which would necessarily fully suppress their rostership. Like if you're looking at your rostership in Best Ball Mania on Underdog, you'd be like, okay, well, I like McBride fine, but the way it works out, why could, just imagine you're looking at all your teams. You would necessarily, if you had all your Engram teams on one side of the ledger and then all your McBride teams on the other side of the ledger, I can guarantee you'd prefer the Engram teams. Because when you're looking at them, you're like, oh, these guys are about equivalent. And then, I got a much better player in the 4th round. Like, we're talking about, to get Trey McBride, you have to forego Rachaad White. This is what we're talking about. You have to forego Amari Cooper. There's some guys with some real upside. That's crazy. And you don't have to do that. You just don't have to do that. Thank you to Evan Engram. Thank you. We love you, Evan Engram. We don't have to do that. We don't have to make that choice. Thank you very much. And I have 10 burning questions for you, Ryan. 10 burning questions after this. Hey, it's the Podfather. I have great news. The draft kit is live. It is world famous. Why? Because it is the best resource for winning fantasy football championships that exists. There are rankings and cheat sheets for every format you can imagine. We have projections both at the team level and the player level. And wherever you are, you can click on a player, open them up, and see in-depth written analysis about what to expect in fantasy football from that player this year. And then you can click on the team and you can get even more in-depth analysis, all the drivers of fantasy production, both in a positive and negative direction for that team, including a signature trend. And the graphics are incredible. So these team insights, they give you the team level projections, the vacated targets, the vacated ARs. And we added a bunch of features. I mean, individual cheat sheets for Theo and Billy and Dario. So you could take your favorite analyst and download their personal draft cheat sheet. And then in the commissioners section, Memphis Young lays out everything you need to know to manage a league. The best minds in the industry contributing analysis. It's certainly not the most inexpensive draft kit on the market, but it is the best. Playerprofiler.com/draft kit. Playerprofiler.com/draft kit. Go get it. The draft kit is live. It is live and ready to be downloaded, live and ready to be viewed on your phone, on your tablet. And there are still in-person drafts. And so we've done these really cool print cheat sheets, color-coded print cheat sheets. And all these analysts not only have their online cheat sheets, we even added Bradley now has an online cheat sheet as well. But we have the print version that for you to bring to your in-person draft as well. So we try to every type of league, every type of draft, we have you covered with our world famous draft kit. 10 burning questions for Ryan Reynolds. 10 burning questions. Give us the best ball ADP mover over the last couple months that you have been most confused by.
That's a very good question. I know the one I'm the most upset by is Jalen Waddle. I was expecting to be wildly overweight on him, and he's been, around 20 all year, so I hate that. I think the best, I wouldn't call it a movement, but the biggest disparity that confuses me is why is there such a gap between C.J. Stroud and Joe Burrow? Love C.J. Stroud, nothing against him. If you're going to compare NFL quarterbacks from a talent perspective, they're probably next to each other, and they both have great supporting casts. So why can I get Joe Burrow 3 or 4 rounds later? That's surprised me for a while now.
I don't have a lot of CJ Stroud. There's another guy, him and Nico Collins, man. Him and Nico Collins, that stack is very tough for me to get.
Yeah.
Tough to justify the ADP. Maybe get a couple. It's tough, man. I'd much rather stack Stroud with Tank Dell if I'm going to get Stroud at all, but way underweight on Stroud. I agree with you. It's a second-year quarterback. I hate to go full defensive coordinator on people, but they have a whole year to digest the film, a whole offseason to digest the film and start to figure out tendencies. If he does it for a second year, that's great, but why don't you make him prove that he's Joe Burrow plus before drafting him as if he's Joe Burrow plus after 1 year?
Exactly my stance. It's not an anti-CJ Stroud stance, but you're right. Extra year of film, and I don't want to say we've seen the peak already because I think that's aggressive, but, last year was pretty impressive, so expecting significantly more than that, I'm not sure I want to bet on that exactly. Although I will say he's definitely an MVP contender. He's in the conversation, but too expensive for me.
And they're gonna feed Mixon in some situations that are gonna drive people crazy.
Yeah.
Right. All the ADP capital invested in the Houston passing game, it's just gonna make these Mixon touchdowns all the more hilarious.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, especially like from the 8-yard line or something, they do a pitch out to Mixon and he scores. Everyone's gonna be like, "Oh, Jesus, fuck Christ, damn it." Right? It's like, hey, guys, he's going to score a bunch of touchdowns. You got to get over it. And that necessarily means less touchdowns for everybody else. Of the Houston wide receivers, I like Dell and Mechie. Mechie very, very late. And I like Dell at his ADP. The other guys, not interested. But going to have some of all of them in tournaments because you have to. You have to. You can't fade Houston. That's not a good idea. We talked about this earlier. In the top 50, if you had to put a guy on your do not draft list, right? I could say Kyron Williams. I could say DK Metcalf. I think there's a handful, if not 2 or 3, yeah, that you could get away with saying, I'm not drafting this guy, and it's not going to hurt me. I'm fine having 0. Do you have anyone in the top 50 that you're comfortable having 0?
If I'm drafting one team, there's definitely guys I'd have my board. In volume, I can't use the word 0, but I don't want a lot of Mike Evans. I don't want a lot of Devonta Smith at cost. I don't want Sam Laporta at cost, which is something I'll discuss later potentially. Trey McBride, Mark Andrews, again, like, why am I taking them where they are when I can have Evan Engram later? And the thing that I will say in the top 50, the guy that I'm not going to draft, even at volume to a degree, is George Pickens is probably going to look like Drake London from a usage standpoint this year, where his target share is going to be 28%, and that's going to mean 5 targets. So I don't really want to pay up for him at pick 39 or so. That's, I think he's a good talent. I think he'll have spike weeks, but that's something where I don't want to get too involved in that.
What are the spike weeks going to look like in Pittsburgh, though?
Yeah, right. Maybe 80 yards and a touchdown's a spike week for George Pickens this year.
This is going to be a very competitive division, but the Bengals always find a way to bend but not break. The Browns had one of the best defenses in the league, and the Ravens are projected to have one of the best defenses in the league.
Yep.
And you're bringing in 2 retread quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So where is it? Right? Where is it? The Deontay Johnson target shares opened up. Yeah, but they added Roman Wilson. I think it's fine. I think in a tournament, I would want a little bit of Pickens because I think he does have that upside that even DK Metcalf can't quite get to. Right? So at this point in his career, I think DK has shown that he can't get there in a way that I think that there's still upward trajectory. If you just look at the building blocks that a very young George Pickens put together as a rookie, and then all the leaps he made last year, more targets, more air yards, more everything, it's interesting, right? He's interesting, but on a platform like Underdog, if he's going top 40, in the context of that offense and that division, he can't finish top 5.
Right.
It's not possible. And if you could argue that there's no way it's not in his range of outcomes, top 5 is not in his range of outcomes, then a full fade is absolutely on the table.
Yeah, it's, again, it's I like the player. It's just the volume and the situation where I'd just rather have other guys in that area. So I wish he was going 10 picks later so I could get more of them.
Yeah, he and Waddle, man. He and Waddle they're very sexy players. You get why people love them, and it's just frustrating that like it's a known, the sex appeal is well known. And we're not going to get any discounts on these guys for the foreseeable future, and we just have to deal with it.
Yep.
Now, this rookie class is very interesting in that you have, the best big 3 receivers I can remember, even better than 2014, like these big 3, right? Because in 2014, it was Mike Evans and Sammy Watkins and Odell Beckham. These 3 are better. Harrison, Odunze, Neighbors, better than those guys. Okay. But also this rookie quarterback class is somehow underrated, even though it was talked about forever in Devy circles. At this point, it's been talked through so many times. These quarterbacks have been talked through so many times, and all the takes are out there, and they either came to fruition or they didn't in the NFL draft. And now we know exactly what the NFL thinks of Drake May. We know exactly what the NFL thinks of J.J. McCarthy, and it's all now settled, right? It's all the dust is settled around these quarterbacks. And the enthusiasm starts to fade a little bit. And typically it fades to the, correct level of enthusiasm, right? Because there's a rookie hype bubble post-draft, and then it settles. By the time August 1 rolls around, they're about right valuation. I actually think that the quarterbacks are now becoming undervalued. I think they were valued correctly post-draft, and they should have stayed there. And that makes most of the rookie quarterbacks of value. They're attractive in all leagues to me, especially 2QB and Superflex. Drake May, JJ McCarthy, they're all in play for me. Even Michael Penix, in a deep league. Let's say you have a 14-teamer, 16-teamer, Superflex, 2QB, deep bench. There's guys that you're never going to play. There's Hail Mary running backs and receivers. Why not take a shot on a Michael Penix? Now, I think that means that the wide receivers as well, if you take another step down that road, the wide receivers like a Justin Jefferson, wide receivers like a DJ Moore, like an Adunze, they also could be values. If Caleb Williams is better than expected, then what about Keenan Allen? If Jaden Daniels is better than expected, what about Terry McLaurin? What about Jahan Dotson? So to me, one of my big off-season theses that I've listed on the show is that this is an incredibly unique opportunity. This is a great opportunity to capitalize on an undervalued position group, unlike any other, because the quarterbacks themselves have value, but then their weapons also become values. What do you think of that thesis?
No, I love it. I also agree that the quarterbacks this year for fantasy purposes they're a bit undervalued, almost across the board, where Caleb Williams' ceiling is absurd, absolutely absurd. The supporting cast is absurd. You want to stack him with anyone out of that wide receiver group, I'm interested. Jaden Daniels, he's a guy where I'm surprised he's still going as late as he is, giving his rushing upside. I like stacking him with Dotson. I thought Dotson was overdrafted, never viewed him as a first pick, but you can get him for free now. If he's your 7th, 8th wide receiver and Daniels is your second quarterback where you pair him with a more stable option, I love teams that look like that.
Backdoor stack with Dotson, baby.
Yeah. I do. I love that one. Again, Drake May has rushing upside. I think Drake May's more of a mystery box like Trey Lance skill set wise than Josh Allen. I'm not sure if Josh Allen's a unicorn, man. Like there aren't really Josh Allens walking around. So I think that's a little unfair, but again, rushing upside. If and when he plays, like he's basically going to have to carry the offense. One thing that I'm going to say, and it's a little disgusting, but I don't take him on underdog because I don't do a lot of 3 quarterback builds on underdog. But if there's more than 18 rounds on a platform and, it's best ball, Bo Nix is actually interesting, rushing upside. He's probably going to play early. And, while I think Sean Payton comping him to Drew Brees is, a little bit of, like an ego boost for the young man, he at least sees some of that in him. So I think his ceiling with Sean Payton for fantasy purposes is more interesting than people give him credit for. And for Dynasty, I comp Penix to Daniel Jones' skill set, meaning his athleticism and arm, with Philip Rivers' release, which one of the quickest releases ever. Really good young supporting cast, good offensive line. Once he eventually takes over, that dude's in a position to succeed. I wasn't surprised he was a first-round pick. I was surprised he went 8th and that Atlanta took him specifically, but he's a guy where if I can get him at a discount in Dynasty, I'm gonna take a shot there.
Think about all the quarterbacks that have been hurt. Lamar Jackson missing games, Joe Burrow missing games, Deshaun Watson missing half the season. You go down the board, right? Anthony Richardson misses half the season. There's been a lot of quarterback injuries every year. Kyler Murray tears an ACL. Dak Prescott, right? What's wrong with his ankle? What's wrong with his hip? Think about it. So, in 2QB and Superflex becoming a lot more popular nowadays, all these guys through Michael Penix become very interesting. Very, very interesting. And I think there's going to be a lot of Superflex teams and a lot of Superflex winners. And they're going to look back at, it was Jaden Daniels. Drake May really came out of nowhere in the second half. J.J. McCarthy was, a rock-solid QB2 for most of the whole season and really ended up being an incredible value for me in Superflex. Imagine that. But then you also have the rookie wide receivers that aren't tethered to rookie quarterbacks like Adunze. You've got Neighbors, you've got Harrison. They're super elite, like we talked about, the best big three wide receivers probably ever. Of Neighbors and Harrison specifically, who are you drafting more?
Oh, that's a tough question because I like Harrison more, but I'm taking Neighbors more at the slight discount. They're both going very early, quote unquote, where I think it's fair, but I'm very upset that they're going as early as they are. But the Giants offense is going to run through Malik Neighbors. Daniel Jones throws to separation. He's not a contested catch player. It's one of the reasons why Kenny Golladay bombed. Not the only reason, but one of the reasons. Neighbors runs in breaking routes, creates separation. That dude's going to have massive volume for a rookie. To segue into betting markets a little bit here, there's a really nice option on DraftKings still to lead rookie wide receivers in yards. Harrison's the obvious favorite, but my guy Daniel Raz put me on this. Neighbors at plus 600 on DraftKings. That should be much tighter in my opinion.
Whoa.
Yeah, that should be much tighter. And then you're gonna like this one too. I'm gonna have to check to make sure where it's at here. Give me 1 second. But Adunze, because you have all the target competition in Chicago, and that's fair. It's fair. You got to Keenan Allen just came off his best year. DJ Moore is wonderful, but Adunze's, well, he's down to 14-1. He was a wild long shot for a while. So 14-1's still a little light, I'd say. He should be around 8-1.
But what was it? Was it like 30-1 before?
Yeah, it was 30-1
Oh, it was 30-1.
Yeah.
God,
yeah.
Don't make me go through the list of receivers that missed games last year. Don't make me do that.
Yeah.
Man, in tournaments, I don't understand. Adunze in big field tournaments, he is very attractive. We're talking about one injury. It's not both. It's just one of these two guys. Keenan Allen, who's had a ruptured spleen, like 3 or 4 serious hamstring injuries, calf injury, hip injury, shoulder injury. I mean, thankfully, DJ Moore is one of the least injury-prone receivers in the league. And we have the Injury Finder app available in the App Store and on Google Play that actually runs an algorithm against their injury history and their stature to predict injuries. And DJ Moore, year in, year out, one of the lowest injury probabilities. So that's the thing. Past injuries do predict future injuries. Keenan Allen, much higher injury probability than DJ Moore. No one has a higher injury probability pretty much most years than Deebo Samuel because he takes so many carries. The projected carries really ratchets up his injury probability. That's an underrated aspect of injury predictions. But that puts me on Adunze. You don't even need a full. You just need a high ankle sprain in week 15. That's all you're looking at, and any player on the football field can suffer a random event of a high ankle sprain. We've seen high ankles, all the different ways high ankle sprains can happen on the football field. It's every year I see a new way of a guy. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess a body can twist in that way. I've never thought about it, but that's the thing. They're getting in these massive collisions every single play, and Adunze, he's right there with them. I think that's part of the suppression of Adunze's ADP is he didn't get drafted quite as high as those guys. He was just a few picks later, but then with all the target competition and a rookie quarterback himself, it's like, well, he's a year away. It's just like the instant categorization of a guy. A year away. But what if, right? What if? You could argue he was better than both of them last year in college. Yeah.
I'll frame that to you this way. I'm a Giants fan. If they took Adunze instead of Neighbors, it would have been a non-event for me. They're all very, very close. And like you said, probably at least the best wide receiver trio at the top of a draft in recent memory. And, I'll throw this on you because I agree. Like I feel this way too. The natural pivot is, next year's the year where he goes crazy. But like you said, we operate in a range of outcomes, especially if you're playing in a large field tournament. You need things to go a certain way for you to hit. and you need to,
Who
play out
are
the
these
scenario
people,
where
by the way? Who are these people, do you think, that have like 3% Adunze in Best Ball Mania? They're out there. There are these dunces that have 3% Adunze. It's like, this is a big field tournament. You want upside. This is what wins. This is exactly the type of opportunity. This is it. What more do you want? It's like Quorum and Adunze. What? How can you be underweight in a big field tournament on Quorum and Adunze? If you are, I can't help you. Right? I don't even think it matters if you listen to the show or not. Because you have to have at least a baseline level of intelligence and instincts in order to even get this show. I don't think those people are even in a position to learn.
Yeah, if you're going to do this and you give yourself a shot to win, you have to be willing to get wrong, especially if you're playing volume. Like some of the teams you have are going to be dumpster fires because the narrative you're using fails. But again, if Keenan Allen misses 6 weeks in money-making season, and Caleb Williams is a historically talented play extender, he rolls right, hits a Dunze for a 50-yard touchdown, 120 yards, 2 touchdown games are absolutely on this guy's plate. Absolutely on this guy's plate. So I don't think, especially since his ADP is rising, I don't want to take him in every draft, but I absolutely want to at least be even on him. And in certain builds, he's the guy I want. Like if I'm strong at wide receiver, I'm very happy to have him as my 4th or 5th option, where I only might need him 3 times late in the year to get me where I want to go. So yeah, I mean, be willing to be wrong if you're playing with volume. You have to be. You're going to be wrong sometimes.
In that ADP zone, I get 2 guys. I got Rashee Rice and I got Adunze.
I like that.
That's it. That's what I got. In fact, I'm in the Scott Fish Bowl right now in the 11th round. It's super flex, so a bunch of quarterbacks go, and it's tight end super premium. So most of these teams already have 2 tight ends, so that's why it's so late in quotes for these 2 receivers. But these are the guys I have circled. I have Lamb, I have Jefferson, I have Neighbors, and I have Pickens. And Pickens in this format went in round 8. So that's a big difference, right?
Yeah, that's fine.
That's when you can draft Pickens, right?
Right.
Not round 4 underdog.
Yeah, it doesn't feel right.
It doesn't feel right, but it felt absolutely fine to take him in the same round as Christian Kirk, T. Higgins, and Zay Flowers feels perfectly fine.
Sure, absolutely.
That's where he should go.
Yeah.
Right. So if those are your 4 receivers, and your 5th receiver is a Dunze. Well, fuck yeah, baby.
Yeah.
This is what I'm talking about. This is fantasy football. We're playing fantasy football, baby. We talk about backdoor stacks. We talk about, Bo Nix, Marvin Mims. I know I gave you the show sheet in advance, so maybe maybe that was it, and I just spoiled it. But let's say you were doing one of these backdoor stacks, one of these Daniels, Dotson, Nix, Mims. Which one's your favorite?
I do like Daniels and Dotson, but one thing, I'm going to admit it. I'm a Giants fan, and I don't like Daniel Jones. But 2 years ago, going into last year, he was overvalued. We overreacted to a 9-7 season or a 9-8 season where they won games by the skin of their teeth, and most of it was built on rushing upside. Last year, he was hurt. He was an atrocity, but he's going to play this year unless it's injury related. Like Drew Lock's not taking his job. He still has the rushing upside. He has the best group of wide receivers he's ever had in his life. The Giants are purposely stacking speed. They have the best offensive line he's ever played with. Give me the guy who's at least capable of spike weeks. Obviously, like if you have Neighbors, you can get Jones super late, but Wan'Dale Robinson or Jalen Hyatt late with Daniel Jones as your second quarterback, when you have some kind of premium centerpiece, I love doing that.
Wan'Dale Robinson is very dynamic.
He is. He's awesome.
He's not Greg Dortch.
No.
That's the thing. People think he's Greg Dortch. No, he's fast. He's super agile. Yeah. He's good. He's just a good football player. And he's capable of explosive plays. I think that's the missing element with Wan'Dale Robinson. There's just so many late round receivers I like. But yes, Daniel Jones, Wan'Dale Robinson, got to be one of the better backdoor stacks that are possible. Now, with rookie running backs, we haven't really dug into the rookie running backs because we talked about this earlier, most of them are going to be relevant next year. Dylan Lobby, Kamani Vidal, love them in 2025. This year, it's Jonathan Brooks, it's Trey Benson, it's Blake Corum. But one of those three guys is on the Panthers. One of those three guys is coming off a late season ACL tear. And that's the guy that's getting drafted first.
Yeah, it's, again, it's probably similar to some of the things you said before. It's about, fear of downside, where the draft capital, he's going to play. But, and I think the Panthers offense is going to be better, but that's like a backhanded compliment, basically. Like, of course it's going to be better because it was an absolute fucking train wreck last year. So Trey Benson, I think his path's a little. James Conner can actually play, and he's been very productive in that offense. But Trey Benson, like when you look at him, he's a more dynamic athlete than Conner. But I could see Conner holding him off longer. Where with Corum, it really boils down to Sean McVay's one of the best head coaches in the league. Kyron
you almost
Williams,
called him a genius, but you remembered what show you were on.
Yeah, you're right. You caught that. It almost came out. Kyron Williams, again, like I don't think that would have happened on really any other team in the league last year. So I don't think it's about him. I think it's about the system. As long as Blake Corum can be trusted and when he can be trusted. You said before, like, you think it's going to be week 1 where he gets the line shares of the carries. I don't think that's going to happen with Trey Benson. If it happens with Blake Corum, it wouldn't really surprise me. So, again, out of that group, he's the cheapest one too, which is, a little mind-blowing.
It should be inverted.
It
should be Corum, then Benson, and then the guy that's coming off the late season ACL tear on one of the worst offenses in the league. Yeah. I hate to break it down in such a simple way. I hate to be such a simpleton. We have player profile. We have all these advanced stats and metrics and all this advanced analysis. And I don't need any of it with this. I mean, right? I mean, Blake Corum also has good advanced stats as well. He's also healthy. Like the last thing anyone needs is more Blake Corum hype from me. Of the late round tight ends, I like explosiveness. I like athleticism. I like Chikakonkwo. I like Luke Musgrave. I like Jelani Woods. Those are my guys. Who are your guys late at tight end? And do you agree that those three have upside? But maybe you have other guys, maybe even more in mind?
They definitely have upside. I'll walk through yours real quick, and then I'll walk through mine. I'm less excited about the Titans' offense than everyone else is. I've watched the Bengals' offense for years, and I've never sat there and think like, oh man, like the guy running this show is a fucking genius, because that's never really been what struck me. We're gonna get higher passing rate. It's gonna be a more modern offense, but do I think this is gonna be a smash hit? I think it can be. Again, I don't want to be completely out on it. I want to completely dismiss it. But, like, I don't view Callahan as, the next Sean McVay, personally. Musgrave, I love. That's a distributor offense. Everyone gets the ball. He's essentially, I don't want to call him George Kittle because that's aggressive, but, like, he's a player, and I love Musgrave. Jelani Woods, man. Jelani Woods is the sort of player that I not only get hurt on once, but I go back to the well for it. I was big overweight on him last year. I'm going to be overweight on him again. Dynamic athlete, ascending offense, very well coached offense, which is I like. So I like it. Now, Tyler Conklin, another guy. I was huge on him last year. Aaron Rodgers played 4 snaps, so it didn't really work out. I'm interested this year. I'm going to take my foot off the gas if the Devontae Adams thing becomes reality. But as it is now, Mike Williams goes down, Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson to the core of the offense, and then the third option is Tyler Conklin, in my opinion.
With this Devontae Adams thing, I mean, I haven't given this much oxygen on the show.
Sure.
How would it even work?
I don't know.
I don't even know how it would. I can't get my head around how it would work.
The one path I see with this is this is basically an all-in season for the Jets. Ownership's desperate to not be, a laughing stock. So if they can get him at a reasonable cost, it does make sense. In terms of, like, can it work money-wise and all that, I don't really spend a ton of time on that stuff because it doesn't really matter for me, But, yeah, I think it's probably more.
These teams like the Raiders,
Yeah.
They view Devontae Adams as a superstar, and they're not as age sensitive as Dynasty leaguers. So they're going to be asking for a lot in return.
Yes, right.
And it's a huge salary. It's just, I've seen these theories proposed year in, year out about play. And this was happening last year wasn't last year the big year for Aaron Rodgers and the Devontae Adams rumors? I feel like I heard more, there was more smoke around Devontae Adams even last year than this year. And yet, of course, poof, nothing.
Yeah. The chances of it actually happening, I'd agree, are pretty thin. But still, there is some logic behind it, so I don't want to completely dismiss it happening.
Okay.
And
again, I agree.
Conklin,
Conklin, he's also athletic.
He is. He is. Like, shockingly athletic.
Yeah.
I'm gonna throw 2 more at you.
Okay.
I think Jonnu Smith. I would have liked this more if this happened 3 years ago, but Miami's never really had a tight end that fits what the San Francisco offense has, and Jonnu Smith is like a lower middle class version of George Kittle, skill set wise. Not George, I don't want to compare the two, but he's a good blocker, he's a good athlete. I don't want him in season long because I don't think he's going to.
What if they want to play him in the use check role?
They may. Maybe he'll do a little bit of both.
That's it.
But again,
that could be fine actually.
Yeah. It could, you get like 2 receptions a game, and the guy's just an all-pro level player at what he does. But for fantasy purposes, he gives you nothing. I think that's very much on the table, but it's at least something I'm interested in. Again, this is a best ball only thing, and I hate that I'm going to say this, but we saw guys like CJ Uzoma pop off for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns with Joe Burrow in the past. I just think Gesicki's going to have a spike week or 2.
I knew it.
Yeah.
I wish I had. I knew you were going to say Gesicki. I wish I had written it down. What I got to do is I got to get a pad of paper and write it down, and then the moment you say it, flash it on the screen.
Yeah.
I got to do that. I got to get a pad of paper because I had it. I was like, he's going to say Gesicki. I know it. God damn it! You got to I swear to God. I swear to God.
I believe you. I believe you. We've been talking for an hour and a half, and that's the first time you broke something like that out on me. So I believe you.
I promise. So, which team do you believe are you most terrified about? So Matthew Friedman, he really thinks that the Saints are a trap. Their offense is destined to regress. Another team you think is a big trap?
I wouldn't use the word trap, but I think the team that's going to take a big step back that no one's expecting is actually Dallas. Dallas was the highest scoring offense last year. I don't think that's happening again. I think they're going to be more like 10. One, you play the AFC North this year, where you got at least 3 top 5 defenses on the table. You go to San Francisco. Houston's a sneaky good pass defense. One of the reasons, CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott's numbers were inflated a bit last year is Philly and Washington may as well have not had a secondary in the second half of last season. That's not going to, neither situation is going to be good, but it's going to be better. So everyone's going to be fine there. I think CeeDee Lamb's going to be good. I think he still, warrants being a top 4, top 5 pick. I'm a little bit below market on him because I do think they're going to slide back a little bit. To your point about the Saints, I'm also out on the Saints. They had the easiest schedule in the league last year. Dennis Allen seems like the guy who gets fired first. So I'm with you on that one too.
Dennis Allen was hired to be fired.
He was, yeah.
He was hired to be fired. That's what he is. He's Dennis fired. Allen fired. See what I did there? I had a great turn of phrase, and then I ruined it. I tried to do a little nickname on top, and I went too far. It flew too close to the pun sun. Oh, I'm back!
Oh man. Yeah.
Yes.
Jesus.
All right. But on the other end, do we have a potential Houston Texans situation this year?
I think the obvious and correct answer is the Bears. They have a top 5 defense. They have an offense that has at least top 15 ceiling. So if I'm going to take a team that was bad last year that's going to make the playoffs, it's the Bears. But to give you one that I think that's going to take a bit of a jump, and again, we touched on this before, dumpster fire to being mildly interesting. I think Carolina, the coaching staff, you're going to probably get more out of Bryce Young. Deontay Johnson's actually a decent player. I don't think they're going to be a top 10 offense or anything like that, but I think if they're around 20th instead of last, I think that's off the table, and I could see them being feistier than people expect.
Deontay's fun. Just because it's just because it's a bad team doesn't mean you never fade the number one option in the passing game. Team's bad. They're going to have to throw. Giants, Neighbors, Panthers, Johnson. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Give me your truther guy. Give me the guy that you're not dropping in Dynasty.
Okay. You're going to like this because we're completely aligned on this. I haven't put him in my I haven't put him as tight end one in my top 150 because I'm trying to give you advice where I don't want you to completely fade people. But I think Dalton Kincaid finishes as a top scoring tight end this year. I think we're in a situation where he was drafted to be their Travis Kelce. He's more of a wide receiver than a tight end.
Yes.
You know, he's legitimately drawing super live at leading that team in targets. I'm taking him as often as I can. I don't, again, you know, we talk about
this is what we talked about, the arbitrage, the tight end arbitrage. The same tight end arbitrage you're going to do, fading McBride to go with Engram. You're going to do the same thing with Laporta to draft Kincaid.
We're one of the same mind, exactly. Like why am I going to take Sam Laporta? We're like, again, you know, touchdowns, wonderful. That's an offense with a lot of options. With Jared Goff, where like now Jared Goff's getting a little overrated, where 2 years ago he was underrated. Now it's like, listen, he's still Jared Goff. He's good. He's not fucking Joe Montana. He's not fucking Peyton Manning. He's Jared Goff. Let's just put it all in perspective.
I've been in these drafts where I did not draft a Jared Goff as like my second quarterback in best ball or whatever it is. And I've had people come back to me and go, dude, how'd you pass on Goff there? And I'm like, what? What? Am I crazy? I've been around, man. I remember when he was drafted. He had one of the worst rookie years of all time. I'm not caring if I missed him. Oh shit! Did I draft Corum? Damn it! Like, I got to go back. What?
Oh man.
You know what I mean? Like, I guess I missed on Goff. What? I don't know. I've had that happen a couple times, and I'm like, I think that's when you know certain players have jumped the shark, where it's like, okay, I think I'm happy he's back for him and his family. He's a professional. He's worked hard. Good for him.
Yeah.
Right? I'm glad. I'm so happy for Dan Campbell. I'm so happy for Detroit.
Absolutely. 100% aligned.
This is all good stuff. It's Jared Goff. Come on.
Yeah.
What are we talking about? What are we talking about here?
He's fine. Exactly.
What are we doing? This is a guy? Oh, shit. I didn't see him. No. Get you out of here. Bold prediction.
All right. This feels even gross saying that. I just went on a show with Bradley Stadler last week and called this man a lunatic. But I think the Pittsburgh Steelers offense under Arthur Smith is going to look more like Ryan Tannehill's in Tennessee than it did with Desmond Ridder in Atlanta. That's still not the thing to get excited about, but I think it's going to be better than people expect. Feel a little gross saying it though, Podfather.
So your bold prediction is this team is going to be better than people expect.
I think the offense is going to be closer to that Titans offense that was actually pretty good than like literally the dumpster fire that was Atlanta last year. Yes, that's my bold prediction.
Okay, you're predicting a team will be pretty good.
A man that everyone...
From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to playerprofiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, data analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.